Hello everyone. In the previous episode, Tuna's mother-in-law took the baby away, but no one knows where she went. What will Tuna do to find her child? Please stay tuned for today's video. The next day, Alex brought Tuna together with the police to her mother-in-law's old house. The path leading to the house was deserted, lined on both sides with whispering bamboo. But for Tuna, every step felt unbearably heavy. She had hardly slept the whole night, her eyes swollen red, her heart filled with anxiety. With every turn of the wheel, she clenched her trembling hands tighter, silently praying that when they arrived, there would be news of her lost child. When they stopped at the gate, the sight before her only tightened the knot in Tuna's chest. The old house was covered in moss, the wooden fence rotting and broken, weeds growing wild along the path, and the yard empty, devoid of any warmth of life. The sky was gray, and a few crows perched on the roof, cawing harshly, making the scene all the more eerie. Instead of meeting her mother-in-law as expected, a middle-aged man stepped out from the porch. His appearance was worn, his skin darkened by the sun, and his eyes cautious as he looked at the strangers. His calloused hands held an old hat loosely, and his hoarse voice broke the silence when the police greeted him. One officer calmly asked, "We would like to meet the elderly woman, the mother-in-law of Miss Tuna. Does she still live here?" The man was silent for a moment, then sighed heavily. "You're looking in the wrong place. She moved away. I haven't seen her come back for over a month now. The house is empty. She asked me to watch over it for her." The words cut into Tuna's heart like a knife. She staggered back a step, her eyes wide, her breath quickening, and then she burst out in choked sobs. "That's impossible. Where did she go? Did she take a baby with her? That's my child. Please tell me where my baby is." The man looked uneasy, avoiding her pleading gaze, his hand scratching at the brim of his hat. Finally, he shook his head and spoke in a low voice. "I don't know. She left in a hurry, only taking a few bags with her. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. I truly don't know anything more." The air grew heavy. The wind rustled through the bamboo like a weary sigh. Alex tightened his grip on his wife's shoulder to reassure her, though his eyes also flickered with suspicion. The officers exchanged glances, and one suggested searching the house for any possible clue. The old wooden door creaked open, sending up a cloud of dust that made everyone cover their mouths. Inside, the rooms were damp, dark, and layered with dust, showing they had long been abandoned. The officers carefully searched every corner, noting down every unusual detail. During the search, Alex suddenly spotted a small cloth left in a hidden corner. He picked it up, pausing in shock. It carried the familiar scent of milk. Tuna rushed forward, her trembling hands grasping the cloth, before collapsing into sobs, as if she were holding on to the last trace of her child's warmth. All eyes in the room fixed on the tiny piece of evidence. A fragile spark of hope flickered in Tuna's heart, but alongside it rose a new fear. If the child had indeed been here, then where was he now? In whose hands? And was he still safe? The atmosphere grew oppressive, leaving countless unanswered questions, forcing them to continue following the faint trail in this desperate and perilous journey. After thoroughly searching the old house without finding any further clues, the group had no choice but to leave. The afternoon sun slanted through the bamboo, stretching their shadows across the dirt road. Tuna walked in a daze, tears streaming down her face. All the hope she had placed in this trip dissolved, leaving behind a suffocating emptiness. Alex silently walked beside her, his strong hand clutching hers, giving her warmth and strength. Seeing this, one of the officers stepped closer, speaking gently. "Miss Tuna, I understand your worry. Today we may not have found useful information, but please rest assured, we won't stop here. The police will continue to investigate thoroughly and follow every lead until we find your child." Hearing those words, Tuna's eyes brimmed with tears. She nodded faintly, her heart still heavy, but the concern and certainty in his tone pulled her back from the edge of despair. Alex then added firmly, "Nah, you have to believe. The police and I will find our child. We will never give up." The road home was cloaked in sorrow, but within Tuna's heart, a faint flame of hope glimmered. Fragile as it was, that flame was enough to help her keep moving forward, alongside her husband and those devoted officers, in the search for her beloved child. After leaving the old house in disappointment, Tuna still couldn't stop crying. The police advised the couple to go home and rest, promising to continue the investigation. But how could a mother's heart find peace? Watching his wife sit silently, her shoulders trembling with sobs, Alex suddenly squeezed her hand and decided not to head straight home. Instead, he took Tuna around the surrounding area, clinging to the faint hope that someone might have seen something unusual. The motorbike rolled slowly along the bumpy red dirt road. On both sides, rows of young rice bent under the wind, and a few old houses stood quietly under the bamboo groves. Alex stopped at every small shop, every household, never hesitating to ask, "Have you seen an elderly woman carrying a newborn or a very small child pass by here?" But most answers were just shakes of the head. Many even looked surprised, saying it had been a long time since any strangers came through. Seeing Tuna's face sink in despair, Alex gripped her hand again, his voice steady. "Don't give up, Na. We'll keep asking. Someone must have seen something." As the sun dipped low, they stopped at a small refreshment stall beneath an ancient banyan tree. The shopkeeper was an old lady, frail and thin, her hair silver, but her eyes still sharp. After hearing Alex's question, she frowned, thought for a moment, then slowly said, "About half a month ago, I did see an old woman carrying a baby pass by. The child cried non-stop, the kind of crying that tore at your heart. I remember it clearly, because it's rare to see anyone come by here with such a small baby." At those words, Tuna jolted, clutching her clothes with trembling hands. Her voice choked as she asked, Do you remember which way they went?" The old woman raised her hand and pointed toward the dirt road leading to town. "I saw them heading that way. They walked fast, didn't speak to anyone." A spark of hope lit up in Tuna's eyes. Alex looked at his wife, his grip on her hand tightening, his gaze more determined than ever. The road ahead was still shrouded in uncertainty, but at least they had found a lead. The trace of a baby who could not yet walk, but was now in someone else's arms. The old woman's words at the small roadside stall were like a flame igniting in the darkness of despair. Hearing about a baby crying endlessly in an old woman's arms, Tuna shook with both joy and fear, tears streaming uncontrollably. She clutched Alex's hand, her voice trembling. That must be our child. He's still so little, it must be him." Alex nodded, his eyes unwavering. He knew they could not waste another minute. Turning to thank the old woman, he helped Tuna back onto the bike and said firmly, "Now we're going right now. Even if it takes all night, I'll help you find our child." The motorbike veered onto the dirt road toward town. Night had fallen, and the cold evening wind howled past, the headlights slicing through roadside thickets as the darkness thickened. Tuna sat behind, clinging tightly to her husband's back, her heart filled with only one thought. She had to find her baby. Along the way, Alex kept stopping wherever there were faint lights, small stores, night food stalls, even the rare passers-by, to ask for clues. His voice was urgent, his eyes betraying his deep worry. Many shook their heads, but a few vaguely remembered seeing an old woman with a baby, matching the old lady's story beneath the banyan tree. As the night deepened, the town slowly appeared, bathed in rows of yellow streetlights. Shops still bustled, but the atmosphere was hurried, no one paying attention to an old woman and a child. Tuna strained her eyes to examine every face, every figure passing by, her heart pounding wildly. Finally, Alex pulled over and looked at his wife, his voice low but resolute. "Now we can't keep searching on our own like this. Tomorrow morning, I'll report these new details to the police right away. But tonight we should make one more round, just in case. Tuna nodded, her tear-reddened eyes now shining with determination. She knew the road ahead would be grueling, but as long as there was a lead, no matter how small, she would never give up. The bike roared back to life, plunging into the mix of light and shadow that was the town at night, carrying them into another uncertain yet hope-filled search. For hours they combed the town, stopping at roadside stalls, late-night shops, even street vendors. But despite their efforts, no further clues emerged. The streets grew emptier, the yellow glow of the streetlights stretching into weary shadows. Clinging to Alex's back, Tuna drooped, her eyes swollen from endless crying. She longed to continue, but her body was drained, her breath labored, her throat parched, even her sobs stifled. Feeling her exhaustion, Alex slowed down and spoke gently. "Nah, it's too late now. If we keep going, you won't hold up. Let's rest first. Tomorrow I'll go with you again. Taking care of yourself is the only way you can care for our child." Hearing his sincere words, Tuna fell silent, tears spilling once more. Her mother's heart screamed to keep searching, but reason forced her to admit her strength was gone. She gave a faint nod, stifling her sobs. The bike turned back, carrying them toward their small rented room. The night had grown deep, the town wrapped in silence, broken only by the fading hum of the engine. Back at the room, Alex quickly poured her a glass of warm water and urged her to rest. He gently pulled the blanket over her, then sat quietly at her side. His eyes were heavy, but inside him was a firm resolve. No matter how hard it became, tomorrow and every day after, he would help Tuna find their child. Tuna closed her eyes, slipping into a restless sleep through her tears. Alex remained seated, staring out into the dark window, his heart clenched around one unshakable belief. When dawn came, the search for their baby would continue. That night, Tuna could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she jolted awake, her body drenched in cold sweat. In those fleeting dreams, the image of her baby appeared, crying desperately, tiny hands reaching out for his mother. She dreamt of running after him, but the faster she ran, the farther he drifted away, his cries fading into the darkness. In her nightmare, Tuna cried out aloud, her voice broken with sobs. "My child, my baby, don't leave me. I'll come to you." Hearing this, Alex woke with a start. He quickly sat up, holding her trembling shoulders. Seeing her pale face damp with sweat, his heart ached. He gently patted her back, his voice low and steady. "Now wake up, it's okay. It was only a dream. I'm right here, calm down." Tuna opened her eyes, still dazed, clutching the blanket tightly as if clinging to reality. She choked on her words, repeating again and again, "My baby. I have to find my baby." Alex sighed softly and wrapped his arms around her, letting her hot tears soak into his shirt. The entire night, he did not leave her side. Each time she startled awake from another nightmare, he comforted her patiently, soothing her until she finally collapsed from exhaustion. In the dim glow of the night lamp, Alex's face carried quiet sorrow. His heart broke for this young mother, suffering the pain of losing her child, battling despair alone. Deep down, he silently vowed that even if the child wasn't his by blood, he would stand by her side and do whatever it took to bring the baby back. The night dragged on endlessly. Outside, the wind slipped through the old roof tiles, whistling into the darkness. Inside, the room echoed only with Tuna's muffled sobs, mingled with Alex's steady whispers. "We will find him. I promise you, Na." At dawn, pale sunlight filtered through the dusty window. Alex was already awake. In truth, he hadn't slept at all. Each time he heard Tuna calling her baby's name in her sleep, his chest tightened. And in his mind, the image of little Harry never ceased to appear. His worry so heavy he could only long for daylight to come, so the search could continue. Quietly, Alex got up, went to the small kitchen, lit the stove, and prepared a simple breakfast for Tuna. A bowl of hot porridge, a few slices of boiled egg, and a warm glass of milk. The scent of porridge rose with the steam, spreading warmth through the room that had been cold all night. Watching the porridge bubble, Alex sighed again. His thoughts weighed heavily. Where was Harry now? Was he being fed? Was he in someone's arms? Or was he crying endlessly in a stranger's care? The thought made his eyes burn red. When he returned to the room, he found Tuna just waking, her face drawn, eyes shadowed after a night of nightmares. Alex smiled gently, setting the tray before her. "Na, eat a little. We need our strength if we're going to keep searching for Harry." Tuna looked at him, her eyes brimming. She bit her lip, then nodded faintly. She knew Alex was just as worried, yet he carried the weight for her, being the rock she could lean on. Outside, the sound of roosters crowing and scattered traffic signaled the start of a new day. Inside the small room, the two of them shared the hot porridge, swallowing not just food but also a fragile, determined hope. Today they must find another trace of Harry. After finishing the hot bowl of porridge, Tuna regained a little strength. She quickly wiped away her tears, her eyes now filled with determination. Seeing that resolve, Alex nodded, his own heart stirred with urgency. There was no time to lose. He quickly packed up, preparing a bottle of water and some dried food in case the journey took long. Then he wheeled the bike to the front, his voice firm yet gentle. "Una, let's go. Today we must find another lead about Harry." Tuna nodded slightly. Her hands were still trembling, but she clung tightly to the seat, as if holding on to hope itself. Inside her, the burning worry for her baby, too small to protect himself, too small to even call out for his mother, raged like a fire. That morning the road into town was bustling. People passed by in streams, vehicles hurried along, and shops began to open. Alex and Tuna moved slowly, stopping at each intersection, each market stall. Patiently, Alex asked in a clear voice, "Has anyone seen an elderly woman carrying a very small baby, passing through here recently?" First, most people shook their heads. But as they ventured deeper into the town's central market, more and more voices began to whisper, recalling a strange old woman who had appeared, always clutching a baby in her arms, moving with haste. Hearing this, Tuna clutched Alex's sleeve, her eyes brimming with tears. "Did you hear that? It could be him. It could be Harry." Alex gave her hand a reassuring squeeze, his gaze steadier than ever. He turned to a vendor, speaking quickly yet respectfully. "That old woman. Do you remember which direction she went?" The vendor slowly pointed toward the road, leading to the old bus station at the edge of town. Tuna's heart pounded wildly, and Alex felt the blood in his veins surge hot. They finally had another lead. Without hesitation, Alex started the engine, steering the bike straight toward the bus station, the place that might hold the answer to their tear-filled journey. The motorbike stopped at the old bus station, where now only a few long-distance buses came and went. The place looked worn down, with just a handful of roadside stalls open and a few drivers sitting together, smoking and chatting idly. Alex helped Tuna off the bike. She stood still for a moment, her eyes filled with worry as she looked around. A child's cry echoed in the distance, making her heart tighten. But when she looked closer, it was just another family soothing their baby. Alex went to ask a group of drivers, but they all shook their heads, saying they hadn't noticed anything. Meanwhile, Tuna, as if drawn by an invisible force, slowly walked along the row of old wooden benches outside the waiting hall. Suddenly, her eyes widened and she froze. Right beneath one of the seats, half buried in dust, lay a tiny item, a pale blue knitted sock. Her hands trembling, Tuna bent down to pick it up, gripping it so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Tears welled in her eyes, and her voice broke as she cried out, "Alex, this is Harry's. I knitted these for him before he was born. There's only one pair like it." Alex immediately came over, examined it carefully, and nodded, his eyes tense. The sock still carried a faint scent of milk, proof that Harry had indeed been here not long ago. Tuna's heart pounded wildly, tears streaming down her cheeks. She clutched the tiny sock against her chest as if cradling her child. Alex placed a steady hand on her shoulder and said firmly, "Nah, this is the clearest trace we've found so far. Harry was definitely here. We need to report this to the police right away so they can narrow the search." In that moment, standing amidst the rundown station and the hurried crowd, Tuna felt a fragile but powerful spark of hope. Her baby was still out there somewhere, and the bond of motherhood had just led her one step closer on this tearful journey.
Xin chào mọi người, rất vui được gặp lại mọi người trong video của mình. Hiện tại kênh của mình đã đi được khá dài rồi. Nhờ có sự đồng hành của mọi người trong mỗi video, mình rất là cảm ơn mọi người vì đã ủng hộ video của mình trong suốt thời gian qua. Hy vọng rằng những video của mình sẽ mang đến niềm vui cho mọi người để cuộc sống có thêm sự vui vẻ và ý nghĩa hơn. Những video của mình thì thường phát hành vào lúc 7 giờ tối tại khung giờ Việt Nam hoặc là 7 giờ sáng. Mọi người nhớ chú ý đón xem nha. Để không bỏ lỡ video nào thì mọi người nhớ bật thông báo để nhận thông báo, vì mình sẽ đăng video hàng ngày, nên là mọi người nhớ để ý kênh video của mình. Và mình rất mong được sự ủng hộ của mọi người để kênh của mình ngày càng phát triển hơn, đưa đến cho mọi người những câu chuyện hay và hấp dẫn hơn. Hy vọng mọi người sẽ ủng hộ kênh của mình nha. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video của mình.